if you are a company, for example,
Hmm.
and you make software, maybe you make a more specific kind of a software.
Hmm.
You're not a gigantic company, you're just sort of medium size, small to medium
Hmm.
size, however you want to define
Hmm.
that. And you're interested in exploring this, but you don't necessarily have resources to kind of bring on a green team or, people who are already really well versed. Are there some low hanging fruit that you might help, your team to kind of dig into or check out?
I used to think this space would just be a checklist. I remember thinking how naive I was. Like my first forays into this were like, oh, let's all gather around a table and just spend a couple of hours writing a checklist that people need to do. And then it became very obvious through those discussions I was having that this was much bigger than a checklist. This is an entire field of computing that we're talking about because unfortunately the advice is very specific and nuanced for the type of application, and it's hard to give very broad scale advice because the same advice for a machine learning engineer might come up with completely the opposite outcome if you gave the same advice to a web developer. So unfortunately, some of this stuff is just it's going to have to delve into your particular software stack. You know your products best. You know what they are. What I always recommend, like the best people to understand how to green your software is your existing teams. What they need is to understand what are the levers of green software. And some of the things I just mentioned there. So one of the things the foundations created, there's material like this has existed in the past that we created. One is a website called principles.green, which is kind of the 8 principles of green software. The foundation is now creating new certification, which is again just about 3 hours worth of training to level set the team of people, of experienced software practitioners, and just let them understand, like what I spoke about before, like what is energy, why is it important,
Mhm.
what are the levers, what's embodied carbon. Our belief is if you can just teach people that, your teams already know how to solve problems. They're
Right.
solving problems 24 hours a day. Once you give them the tools, they will then go, oh, now I understand what means to be green. Oh, just do X, Y, and Z on product
Right.
ZY. So we're also creating catalogs with very specific targeted advice for very specific targeted roles. And we're going to be launching with a catalog for web, if you're in the web space, a catalog for cloud, if you're in the cloud space, and a catalog for machine learning, if you're in the machine learning space, maybe mobile as well.
Mhm.
So if you go to the Green Software Foundation, this is some of the material that's going to come out as well. But yeah, education training. Also take a look at one of the things that's a big challenge for a lot of people is how do you measure some of this stuff? For me, this has been I've avoid measurement has been the hardest problem in this space. So for the first 2 years, just completely avoided it, like a kind of problem on your to-do list that you keep on putting aside because you know how gnarly and hard it's going to be. But when the foundation was born, we finally had the tools to kind of figure this out. So we've actually come up with a specification for measuring software as well. And take a look at that. And again, all this stuff, you go to the Green Software Foundation, you'll find all this material.
Let's say I work with servers, so I'm going to look at when renewables spike in certain places, perhaps. Is there any kind of abstracted thing where I can just go, oh, okay, I can tell it what workloads to run, but I don't know when energy is spiking or not? Like, how do you find that out dynamically?
The two questions you asked is the same question that everybody who's doing this thing is asking, which is where should I run it and when should I run it?
Mhm.
That's basically it. And I see like so many companies and organizations are solving the same technical problem, which is where open source kind of really shines. So in the foundation, we got kind of multiple organizations together that are looking at the space and go, look, compete at that level, but collaborate at the open source level. And they're developing something called a carbon aware software development kit, which is still a little bit abstracted away from what you're asking for, but it will be the kind of library which you would incorporate into Kubernetes to do that orchestration. And it basically provides, a nice like an API, like a nice abstraction. You can clearly ask it questions like that. You can there's multiple data providers that provide that data, but then some of them are free, some of you got to pay for. All their APIs are a little bit different, and this thing provides a nice level of abstraction so that you can just use a Carbon or SDK. If you buy a different license, you plug it in, and none of your software changes. You're just using the SDK. That's that one thing you can look at.